Across America, BP supports more than 275,000 jobs to keep energy flowing. Jobs like updating turbines at one of our Indiana wind farms and producing more oil and gas with fewer operational emissions in the Gulf of Mexico. It's and, not or. See what doing both means for energy nationwide at bp.com/investing in America.
For 25 years, Brightview Senior Living has been dedicated to creating an award-winning company culture so residents and families receive best-in-class services. Across our 50 communities, Brightview associates help deliver peace of mind, safety, security, transportation, daily programs, delicious food, and high-quality care if needed. Discover how our vibrant senior living communities can help you live your best life. Visit brightviewseniorliving.com to learn more. Equal housing opportunity.
Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Hi everyone, it's Amanda Rieger Green. Welcome to Soul Sessions. Today I have a special guest joining me. Her name is Megen Mundy, and she is the owner of the Herb Bar, Austin's oldest apothecary. But she's not only the owner of the Herb Bar, she is an herbalist herself, and her journey began through self-exploration and her own personal, spiritual, mental health journey. Of course, the route that so many of us have taken with mental health and being on SSRIs and different types of prescription medications, having that awakening and awareness where we sometimes, many of us, begin to open up to more holistic ways of healing and plant medicine. And that journey really kicked off, I think, her avocation, which she is an herbalist. She studied under Matthew Wood at the Herbal Institute and Ginger Webb, her holistic nutrition. She's also studied through Cornell's program of holistic nutrition. She can tell you more about this, but without further ado, welcome, Megen.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I want to start at the beginning with what you and I were discussing before we started recording, and it's having personal and mental health challenges. And the first thing that we are taught or we go to are prescription remedies, which I am an advocate for when they are needed. There's a time and a place, but I have been able to really find herbalism and herbal remedies to be actually so much more healing from a mind, body, spirit perspective, and then also healthier for my body. So will you talk a little bit about your personal journey and how that led you into integrative medicine and herbalism?
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely did not grow up around herbal medicine. I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up eating, fast food. I spent a lot of time alone in my room reading. I honestly didn't spend a lot of time outdoors. Both my parents are kind of nerdy book people, but not really like outdoor people. And coincidentally, I grew up to be a rather anxious child, and growing up, I've been on just about every kind of SSRI, anti-anxiety medicine that you can think of. And, again, like you said, I never want to say I'm against medication because there are times and place for it. There's no judgment for that. But for me, there wasn't really any plan for me to okay, you're going to take this and then eventually you'll be off it. It was just take these for the rest of your life to feel normal. And they had a lot of side effects, so I would say kind of in my mid to late 20s, I sort of started looking for alternatives to kind of help combat some of my symptoms and my anxiety and depression, but do it in ways that were more natural and holistic and didn't have as many of those side effects. And, For a long time, I feel like I did a lot of researching on my own and reading. But to be honest, I was a little bit intimidated, because I didn't grow up with these things. I didn't really start studying them until I was, 25, 26. And, I think for a long time, I just kind of told myself like, oh, that's for other people, like the witches in the woods and things like that. And then I had a really good friend of mine who took me to dinner and was like, listen, this is what you're really interested in. You're always suggesting things to me. You're always tinkering and making like tinctures. She was like, why don't you actually like go to school? And I kind of thought about it. And then like next week, she had bought me an online course just to kind of get the ball rolling. And I'm so appreciative of that. Even that first online class I took, it really kind of gave me the confidence to really say like, hey, this is something that I'm really interested in. And I do want to share this with other people. So then I kind of began my process and started studying herbal medicine, like I said, through Matthew Wood. And then I did in-house here with Ginger Webb at Sacred Journey School of Herbalism. But I think for me, a lot of the process has been really helpful in connecting to my body. That's something that I think I've really always struggled with is like disconnection, disassociation, things like that. Especially when you kind of live in a fight or flight, you become very disconnected from your body. And of course, when we're doing like Western medicine, where you just go to the doctor, you tell them what's wrong, you don't even know what pill you're taking, and they just send you on your way. With herbal medicine, with plants, there's just so much more of a connection, right? You're like learning about the plant. If you're drinking it as tea, you're smelling it, you're tasting it. There's like that visceral reaction. And then I started growing the plants, right? I would forage the plants. I would grow them. I would nurture them myself. So even then, like deepening my connection with the plants and with nature and how we're all sort of connected. So that's really what I started to kind of have all of the pieces connect for me, was that the more hands-on approach that I got with like, going out on walks and like being like, oh, that's cleavers, or like, making a soup with chickweed, so like just using the plant in different ways and like forming a bigger relationship to it. I think that's really when the medicine became more potent for me, is when I really like understood where the medicine and what I was using came from.
And first of all, becoming approachable. Like you said, initially you were intimidated. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I've felt that way before in herbalism or plant medicine, and it's certainly not my wheelhouse and area of expertise. However, whenever I set intentions and become open to it, the teacher appears or the apothecary appears, and I walk in and there's someone that guides me to it. And you and I are connected, and she's going to be at the Austin, Texas event on May 7th, and she's going to have all sorts of teas and tinctures and things that will relate to what we're doing at the event, that will really help open up and accelerate your journey and your awareness of how plant medicine and herbalism can enhance and really add value to your experience. But I went into the herb bar, and I hadn't been in years, since we lived in Belize, and we connected. And then all of a sudden the puzzle pieces came together, and realized that we have a mutual, very dear friend who is connected in the plant world, and it is his magic and his medicine and his calling. But both of us share this dear friend. And when I came into the herb bar, we were talking about the event, and what I love is you were leading me and guiding me to things on the shelves in the herb bar that we could use at the event, and you intuitively knew what I was really wanting to bring forth for this event and support the group that will be there and having plant medicine. And we just had this synergistic knowing. And then I felt safe enough to tell you what was going on in my life and some grief and loss. And we'll share a little bit about that later. But I'm sharing that with everyone. So, if you are totally new to herbalism and utilizing plant medicine, don't be intimidated. And even if you don't live in Austin, Texas, there may be an apothecary near you. I encourage you to seek that out or seek out local herbalist in your area. If not, the Herb Bar in Austin, Texas, they've got an online presence and you can get started there. But it's one thing at a time. And I've found for me, and you really are knowledgeable in this area, but I am driven and I want to get it all done and get it done yesterday. That is the unnatural nature that I am unlearning, is let me get it all done and let me get it done yesterday. So my natural nature is give me every single tincture in the place so I can do it all next week. And I have learned to say, here's what's going on with me. Here is the thing that is most present and pressing. What do I need now? And do one or two things at a time. And that's been what's so effective for me because, one, I don't get overwhelmed in trying to heal 10 different things going on in my life and my psychology and my spiritual journey. I say, this is the thing that's really creating the most turmoil. Or if it's physical pain, here is the physical symptom I have going on. Let's work on this healing because it'll usually bring about a spiritual healing. So one or two things at a time has also given me the intuition to recognize the value in working with plant medicine.
Yes. And I love what you said about not being intimidated. That's honestly one of the biggest things that I really try to create with the herb farm. As I mentioned, I was intimidated by it when I first began. And it's so interesting because every single one of us has this knowledge in our lineage, right? Like we're so accustomed to Western medicine and doctors, but like everybody's great grandmother, no matter what culture you were in, has some form of herbal medicine, some form of like magic that they use in the kitchen or, things like that. So it's wisdom that's in our DNA. It's just kind of reintroducing yourself to that. And I say creating safe spaces where people feel comfortable coming in and asking questions or dipping their toe in something that feels overwhelming, because it is. There's like a million different herbs, and that's really what we try to do at the shop, because that's what the shop was for me before I even owned it, right? I used to live in the neighborhood and I would come and spend all my money and I would ask the staff like, hey, what do you think about this herb and how does this interact? And I would just learn that. And much like you said, like an herb or two at a time. And I always like to suggest that to people anyway, because it's like, I notice whenever I teach like, Herbalism 101 classes or something, people get so excited. They want to try everything. They want to make all the formulas all at once. And, that's fun. But I really like people to get to know an herb singularly on its own, because that's really going to give you an opportunity to get to know the ins and outs and all of it can offer for you. And if you're kind of combining a bunch of different things all at once, you're really not going to know like the singularity of like what that herb can offer you. Kind of like what we were talking about, the mimosa, right? You really want to get to the root of the issue, because so many symptoms are all compiled for like, one thing. And so much of it is grief and so much of it is nervous system regulation. And then a lot of the time I see like physical pain coming from one of those two things, right? And it's crazy, when I started studying herbs, I realized how many herbs and plants that were medicinal that were just around me that I had absolutely no concept of. So I think that's the fun discovery.
Absolutely. And I know that that's been my experience, is when I focus on what is going on now and I ask for the help, the teacher and the medicine appears. And this, a lot of times wherever we are locally, plants or weeds that pop up in our yard seemingly randomly are showing up as medicine or guides for us. I know that friends in the herbal community will say, well, this popped up in my yard, and sure enough, this is what it's known for healing, and that's what's going on, and I didn't even realize it. So there is this sacred nature to what goes on in herbalism, and the more, just like when I talk about numerology or astrology and signs and synchronicities and spirit animals, any of those things, when you look for them, they appear, and they appear more prolifically and abundantly. And what Megen was alluding to, so when I went into the herb bar a few weeks ago, it was just after I had lost my Labrador Tex, literally the day after. So I was kind of raw and exhausted, and I had gotten into Austin. I knew I was going to go to the herb bar, and I thought, well, I'm just going to tell Megen what is going on. I've just lost Tex, and I've been through a massive season of 2 years of loss, and he's kind of like hopefully the last passage, the last rite of passage, and it felt very different, but I also just felt exhausted. And I said, Megen, this is immense grief. What do you recommend? And you went straight to mimosa and said, I'm really excited for you to try this. It's heart-opening, it's soothing. You gave me a handful of qualities. And right after I got in the car, I opened it up, took a few droppers, and within about an hour, it was almost like a warm elixir, like a warm bath. And it's not like I was just zoned out in a warm bath, but throughout the evening and the afternoon, I started to feel a sense of my sadness and my loss and the grief that was coming up, but it was like a gentle healing salve or bath. And what is very strange is over the course of the evening, and this was just after taking a few droppers and being excited to introduce that medicine and knowing that it was going to provide whatever I needed, there was even a little bit of ecstatic release or happiness. And I left that evening, and I just want to share this with you. And I had a women's meeting that evening in Wimberley. So I had driven back to Wimberley. The weather was beautiful. And I felt really a sense of peace in driving. And then when I got into that community, and anyone out there who's going through grief, it's sometimes really hard to be around people when you are like in active bereavement in the midst of it. It had, really just been 24 hours. But I knew I was committed to this women's thing, and I was going to go. But I felt so much love from that experience. I had a woman come up to me who's a long-term friend of mine, and she just came up and put her hand on my shoulder and said, hey, how are you? She knew about what had happened with Tex. How are you? I just wanted to check on you. And I said, thank you for asking. I'm really okay. And she walked away, and I thought to myself, wow, I am loved. People love and appreciate me. And so the reason I'm getting emotional even as I'm saying it, because not only was there this gentle opening, I also could receive support and recognition in a very respectful and holistic way. So it wasn't just about my heart opening, it was about a receiving while I was grieving. And that to me felt amazing. And I shared this with you, and I want to share it with everyone. Megen gave me this sweet mimosa tincture, and I used it. It took me 3 weeks. I used it. I used a few droppers a couple times a day. And I felt the grief. It was there and present and heavy, but it was also moving and fluid and very much through my heart center.
Yeah, that means the world to me, because I have also used mimosa in that way. And I love that we keep talking about it as like gentle, because, there's a lot of other things. And sometimes when they're too powerful, it almost kind of like doesn't allow you to really do the work that's necessary to move through grief. Right? So you're still feeling it. You're not numb to it, but it's like things have softened. You're able to really look at it differently. And another thing that I love about mimosa, and kind of speaking to what you said, the crazy thing about grief that we forget is that it should be kind of a wide range. It's not just sadness, because when you're grieving a loss, like your dog or a friend or something like that, you're really supposed to move through like the happy moments too, right? Mm-hmm. And I think when you have the support of a plant that's gentle and loving, especially something like mimosa, You're able to feel those range of happiness and sadness and the support of your friend while still navigating the grief. But it's like, for me, sometimes when something feels so heavy, I almost get stuck in like a freeze where I'm not really able to move through it. And that's what I love about Mimosa is you're still able to do the work and go to your women's group and do those things, but it's just softer. It's just holding space for your grief is what Mimosa does. It's like a friend that's like, let me take some of that on for you, and so many plants are like that. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And that definitely was my experience.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives you access to all. Every audience, live conversations, trusted influencers, and the insights and data you need to grow. iHeartMedia is your access company. Go to iHeartResults.com for more.
I'm Elliot Connie, and this is Family Therapy.
My best hopes, I guess, identify the life that I want and work towards it.
I never seen a man take care of my mother the way she needed to be taken care of.
I get the impression that you don't feel like you've done everything right as a father. Is that true?
That's true, and I'm not offended by that.
Thank you for going through those things, and thank you for overcoming them.
Thank God for deliverance.
Every time I have one of our sessions be positive. It just keeps me going.
I feel like my focus is redirected in a different aspect of my life now.
So, how'd we do today?
We did good.
The Black Effect presents Family Therapy. Listen now on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm preaching to somebody today who is waiting for God to give you your next step. And you don't know what it is yet. You need God to show you your next step. Because God, I can't stay where I am, like I am, where it is. This isn't going to work. I have to move on, but I don't know where. A lot of time you'll use it as an excuse. Well, I don't know how. I don't know where. I don't know what. God, if you show me. God, if you tell me. God, if... No. You know enough right now. And if you needed to know more, he would show you.
Hey, this is Stephen Furtick. I want to invite you to listen to my podcast, Elevation with Stephen Furtick. I am here to help you for the battles that you face in life, for the times when you feel discouraged, for the times that you need guidance from God. I want to give you the truth of what he says about you to help you rise to your full potential. Listen to Elevation with Stephen Furtick every Sunday and Friday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I think right now we've had massive astrology happening. We're in the midst of unprecedented times, some revolutionary astrology that is really opening us up into the opportunity to integrate higher consciousness. And there's a lot of chaos, confusion, anxiety, things that are coming up that feel beyond control. And I know that I get a lot of physical symptoms. I can feel my neck tense up or my jaw, so it'll be throat chakra related stuff, or I'll get things in my bladder. It'll be more root and sacral chakra. And I know how to attribute those things in my body. But for anyone out there who is growing in their intuition, expanding their consciousness, most people are experiencing extreme inner turmoil or physical symptoms. Have you been seeing that lately with people coming in the herb bar or just clients in general?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Pluto hit Aquarius with a bang. We're in eclipse season. We just came out of Aries season. So there's just a lot of kind of frenetic energy in the air. I think we're just kind of collectively moving through that. I think, we're still kind of coming off the trauma of lockdown and all of these things.
Yeah.
Personally, for me, I turned 40 in September of last year, and my transits are Pluto and Saturn have their foot on my neck right now. So I just feel like a lot of people are kind of going through a transformational process right now, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, right? I think we're good on that, but I just feel like, I would say definitely since COVID and lockdown, people are seeking alternate ways to live their life, just across the board. Like, do I want to work as much? Do I want to go into the office as much? Do I really want to eat this food that makes me feel bad about myself? Do I really want to continue on not holding boundaries? You know what I mean? I just think in general, there is a curiosity onto like, what could my life be like versus what has society told me that, you know, is the gold standard of happiness. And I think herbalism and plant medicine and holistic medicine is just like a small part of that. But I do see like the shift and more interest of that, which is speaks to a bigger idea of like, is this really working? Can I move into something that's maybe more aligned and makes me happier? I feel like a lot of us are crumbling under society and capitalism and kind of that go, go, go. I was talking about this with my therapist, how like everyone's always like, oh, everybody has ADHD now. And it's like, yeah, we do, because our brains are not able to work, grind. You know, it's like our bodies are telling us like, this is not working. And I think it's exciting times, because I do think the shift and the change is coming. But, you know, when things change, there's always like a little bit of like, you know, foot on the gas kind of an energy.
So tell me, for people who are new, who come in, and I know you all have the most amazing library of teas, and teas are such a great place to start. And the herb bar, by the way, has beautiful mixtures, and we have some that we will have at the event on May 7th, and Megen is going to showcase those, some that we have hand-picked and hand-selected. But talk a little bit about utilizing teas, and even what is your practice with teas?
For me, my favorite way to take my medicine is in tea form. And I think that's largely because I, much like yourself and just being a business owner, it's go, 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 go. And making yourself a cup of tea is a very, very small way to add a little bit of ritual and intention and slow down, even if it's just for 10 minutes out of the day. So when we talk about traditional tea, it's black tea, it's green tea, all of those things.
Yeah.
Great. Those are fun. But herbal tea, we actually call that tisane, if you want to be fancy and impress your friends. You know, working with herbs and making a tea with herbs is such a great way to get to know it, because it's such a visceral experience, right? So you're going to be looking at the tea, like what are the colors involved? How does it smell? What does it make me feel like? So it's a really good way to get to know a plant and kind of how it interacts with your body. And it's just a really good way to kind of nourish yourself, right? Like we all love like a warm bath. Like drinking a hot cup of tea is so relaxing and nourishing to the spirit. And it's such an easy thing to do. So you really only need like a teaspoon of dried herb per 1 cup of water. So you don't need to throw in all your tea. Just a little bit per 1 cup of water. You steep it for about 15-20 minutes. For me, I steep it a little bit longer, because the longer you steep it, you're really going to be breaking those cell wall down and really making a more potent cup of tea. I mean, obviously, before you're ingesting anything that you've never ingested or worked with before, you know, do a little research, right? Make sure it's not contraindicated with anything. Like St. John's wort is a great example of an herb that has a lot of really wonderful benefits, but it's also kind of contraindicated with some medication. So, you know, like do your research, make sure your medications are not contraindicated. But there really is not a wrong way to make a cup of tea. It's fun to experiment and just see like, oh, I steep that a little too long, you know. Chamomile is a great example. I think many of us have had chamomile tea, but I think a lot of us have realized that if you steep chamomile tea for too long, it's going to be really bitter, right? It's going to be not as flavorful and delicious. So I just like to encourage people to kind of make it a fun thing and sit down, spend 10 to 15 minutes drinking the tea, seeing how it makes you feel. And once you kind of get to know that on a different level, then you can sort of start to think like, this tastes this way and this makes me feel this way. Wouldn't it be nice to pair it with this other herb, you know? And that's where you can kind of experiment with. But I honestly think tea is one of my favorite things to work with as far as plant medicine, just because you do set an intention and a ritual practice around it. And I think anytime you can create a little ritual for yourself, it's like you learn deeper.
Absolutely. And it's that mind-body connection, and it's the cognition of the intention, just like the sweet mimosa you recommended. I trusted you and your knowledge and your wisdom. And I said, here's what's going on. Take me to the plant medicine. And so I was already in a state of expectancy versus expectation.
Right.
You know, I wasn't like, well, the plant's going to do this and I'm going to feel better tomorrow. So it's just like getting energy work. You know, so many people will say, well, I didn't feel anything. You know, and anytime I go into any kind of session, whether it's an intuitive reading or energy work or the chiropractor, it doesn't matter. I go in with this state of I'm going to meet the ideal person or the ideal guide, and they're going to guide me to the crystal or the book or the plant or the herb, you know, whatever it is. And then I'm going to let it do its magic. And sometimes it's subtle and other times it's louder and in my face. That is the journey. And I think getting intentional, that's also a gift for people to recognize that as we shift in our awareness and we ask these big questions like, what could my life be like? That can be a daunting question, but it's coming up for so many of us is, what is my meaning? What is my evolving meaning? What is my life looking like? How is it changing? And how do I become sovereign in that process? And being able to explore and know it is a journey. I mean, I'm going to be trite for a second, but it's like we get so focused on the destination that we forget the journey. And plant medicine, I think, is stop and smell the roses. This has come up frequently, you know, and look at the flowers, look at the plants around you. And even like you said with the teas, what I loved is apart from the relaxation and the ritual and the intention around it, the colors, because it's just like eating vibrant foods, you know, vibrant fruits and vegetables. I think, gosh, when I do a vegetable medley and it's so bright and beautiful, I think, wow, you are nourishing my body and activating things in my cells and clearing things that I don't even understand, but there is medicine in this, and whatever is meant to be, you do your work and I'm open to it. So it feels that way. I know that when we connected, you were talking a lot about saffron being one of your new favorite things. And saffron, both of us said, first of all, is just so beautiful. The color is gorgeous. But talk about saffron, because you have it as an ingredient in some of your teas and some other things in the shop, and you've been using it lately. And talk about the benefits of saffron and how you were saying you think it's going to become more widely utilized. And it's been utilized in the Eastern world in ancient times, but coming back, making a kind of a comeback or a revitalization is something that I think is activating and awakening us.
It's honestly one of my favorite things to talk about because it's something that I use in my own practice almost daily. You know, we're all used to the saffron threads. I think a lot of us have cooked with them before, but it's such a heart-opening, heart chakra herb. Much like the mimosa, it's really soft and gentle. It kind of allows you to open up to vulnerability, which I love. It's very relaxing to the nervous system. I feel like for me, it's allowed me to tap into joy a little bit easier. You know, I get so stuck in I need to do this. I need to do this. This can be better. I need to optimize this. But I have trouble kind of looking around and going, oh, but look what I've manifested here. And like, look at this, that I'm moving through this. And so I think saffron just was really such a lovely counterpoint to that. And like I mentioned to you before, I'm really seeing when we're talking about natural medicine working towards anxiety and depression. You know, I think if you are looking for an alternative, something that maybe isn't necessarily like a pill form, saffron is really, really great for that. And unlike St. John's wort, which has also been traditionally used for that, it is not as contraindicated, right? So you could be able to drink like saffron tea. It's been one of my favorite discoveries, I'd like to say, in the last few years. And it's also just really tasty and delightful. There's a lot of really great herbs, but not all of them taste delicious in a tea form. Saffron is that girl for sure.
When I was at the shop, I got what are they called? The little the herbs.
Yeah, Euphoria blend.
So I smoked those one of those on the day of the eclipse. And I had some sacred cacao that had rose in it because you and I had been talking about rose. And there's a theme here, too, that keeps going back to the heart because rose, as you told me, it is beautiful, but it is a heart opener. And it was so relaxing because on the day of the eclipse, instead of going out and being in community and out in the world, I kept it as a very sacred, intimate time. And I used one of those and felt this sense of peace. And I have to tell you, it's really funny. During the eclipse, I just relaxed and I meditated and I smoked this herb and just felt very peaceful. And then my husband and I played dominoes. And so there's this element of let's do something very playful. Let's just connect, and it doesn't need to be super ritualistic or very planned out. So we played dominoes and we cooked dinner and had a relaxing evening. And it felt very much like go with the flow energy and quit piling things on your plate that are accomplishment driven or task-oriented, and just do what's in front of you. The work will be waiting and you will have the creativity or the energy to do it when it is time versus forcing it into a schedule. And that's the experience that I received in conjunction with some sacred cacao.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, those three things are a wonderful combo. That was a really good combo that you thought. But yeah, I was thinking about this with someone the other day. And you think about the eclipse itself, the energy of the eclipse, right? Like the sun, when you think of the sun and astrology, it's like shining light, doing, where are you going, create, things like that. And so when the universe is shadowing that and it becomes dark and everything was quiet, at least where we were, everything was silent. And it's like, no, that's what we're supposed to be doing during that time. It's going inward, not necessarily doing a whole bunch of stuff, but like really taking that time to be quiet and to go within. And I think all of those things, how and the euphoria, I think those were a really nice choice.
Yeah. And what was really sweet about it from a synchronistic standpoint is our neighbors, they have 3 little girls, and they were outside giggling and laughing and playing. So it was very still and quiet. And then we had their little playful giggles in the yard next door. There was almost like a childlike element to it of freedom and play. And when I think about when people ask me, or I've really gone within and ask myself, what is happiness to you, Amanda? I go straight to my grandparents' fig tree in their backyard and my cousins and us playing barefoot and laughing and all of those things. I go back to that age, that space, and there was a stillness and a happiness that came through. And it was like, oh, it's this remembering. This is who I am. And when I live in this space or create sacred time for it, it shows up more in my daily life, even amongst the responsibilities of the day-to-day and the multitude of things we have on our plate that can create all of the nervous system deregulation and disruption and stress and all the things that life seems to breed. So adding these plants for me, and I know for other people, they can open us up to remembering parts of who we are and reclaiming those disassociated parts, like you said, because so many people relate to disassociating, and we have so many distractions, or we distract, or we distract with busyness, that finding that simplicity and stillness helps us to remember and rekindle our essence and our awareness. And for me, when I get to bring that into my daily life in very intentional ways, life becomes easier. And I don't mean that I don't go through my day-to-day and my pains and stressors and challenges, but I seem to get out of my own ego and way faster. And it's that disillusion of the ego that is fusing with my higher consciousness. So one thing I would love for you to recommend, because so many people have stomach issues that relates directly back to our seat of empowerment or disempowerment. And that's the numerology of this year, the solar plexus. What do you recommend right now, or what are you loving when it comes to really softening the ego so you can open into that heart space of vulnerability?
I'm Elliot Connie, and this is Family Therapy.
My best hopes, I guess, identify the life that I want and work towards it.
I never seen a man take care of my mother the way she needed to be taken care of.
I get the impression that you don't feel like you've done everything right as a father. Is that true?
That's true, and I'm not offended by that.
Thank you for going through those things, and thank you for overcoming them.
Wow. Thank God for deliverance.
Every time I have one of our sessions be positive. It just keeps me going.
I feel like my focus is redirected in a different aspect of my life now.
So, how'd we do today?
We did good.
The Black Effect presents Family Therapy. Listen now on the Black Effect Podcast Network, iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm preaching to somebody today who is waiting for God to give you your next step. And you don't know what it is yet. You need God to show you your next step. Because God, I can't stay where I am, like I am, where it is. This isn't going to work. I have to move on, but I don't know where. A lot of time you'll use it as an excuse. Well, I don't know how. I don't know where. I don't know what. God, if you show me. God, if you tell me. God, if... No. You know enough right now. And if you needed to know more, he would show you.
Hey, this is Stephen Furtick. I want to invite you to listen to my podcast, Elevation with Stephen Furtick. I am here to help you for the battles that you face in life, for the times when you feel discouraged, for the times that you need guidance from God. I want to give you the truth of what he says about you to help you rise to your full potential. Listen to Elevation with Stephen Furtick every Sunday and Friday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get emotional with me, Radhi Devlukia, in my new podcast, A Really Good Cry. We're going to talk about and go through all the things that are sometimes difficult to process alone. We're going to go over how to regulate your emotions, diving deep into holistic personal development, and just building your mindset to have a happier, healthier life. We're going to be talking with some of my best friends.
I didn't know we were going to go there on this.
People that I admire.
When we say listen to your body, really tune into what's going on.
Authors of books that have changed my life.
Now you're talking about sympathy, which is different than empathy, right?
And basically have conversations that can help us get through this crazy thing we call life.
I already believe in myself. I already see myself. And so when people give me an opportunity, I'm just like, oh, great, you see me too.
We'll laugh together, we'll cry together, and find a way through all of our emotions. Never forget, it's okay to cry, as long as you make it a really good one. Listen to A Really Good Cry with Radhi Devlukia on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What do you recommend right now, or what are you loving when it comes to really softening the ego so you can open into that heart space of vulnerability?
You know, I think for the fire in the stomach and an herb that I really love that's very soothing and coating and softening is marshmallow root. Marshmallow root is an herb that we call mucilaginous, was just a very fancy way to say like coating, right? So it's great if you have a sore throat. It basically just goes into any inflamed or irritated tissue in the body and helps soften it. I also really love to use it in like a cold infusion instead of like a hot water infusion. So I'll pour cold water over it, let it sit overnight, because then you're really going to get that soft coating that you would maybe kind of burn away with a hot water. And I use that all the time in the summer just to kind of stay cool. Like if I work a really hot market, I'll take a bandana and dip it in marshmallow infusion and kind of keep it on my body. So it's cooling, it's nourishing, it's softening. But honestly, I would say the herb that I'm going to most lately, and it kind of correlates with that, is milky oats. So oat straw is a very common plant. You'll see it all over here. And the oat straw itself is very nourishing. It's full of all kinds of vitamins, minerals, things like that. But there's a certain time of the year where the top of the oat plant produces, like, you squeeze it and it's like this white latex stuff that comes out. It's only during a certain time of year. And if you tincture that fresh, if you tincture the oat top itself, it is an almost immediate response into the body's nervous system. So I find a lot of people who have kind of nervous tummy issues or have trouble kind of like stepping into their power or like that frazzled feeling, milky oats is one of my favorite things because you're going to feel that immediate relaxation, but it's also going to work to kind of restore those nerve endings that have gotten kind of disattached and like frazzled. It's a really lovely medicine to work with. And that's something that I'm usually suggesting to people, especially when they have those kind of like stomach issues. Also, and I'm guilty of this too, like when I'm nervous and I'm stressed, I tend to eat food that isn't necessarily good for me.
Yes.
Because your body's like, this is what you need to feel better, but actually it makes it infinitely worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, obviously the oat straw, but also just like really putting in clean things into your body that are going to nourish you rather than take away, right? You want to be like pouring from a full cup, not an empty cup, right? And that's never something that people want to hear, but I do like to introduce that when I'm talking to people because you can take all the herbs you want, but if you're putting trash food into your body, it's not really going to help. And unfortunately, your nervous system, your brain, and your stomach are just all so connected. You can't have one without the other.
Like you said, the gut, the brain, everything, the nervous system, it's also interconnected and what we ingest and what we put into our body. I did find, for me, a couple of things just on a personal note that I integrated over this last year. I realized I wasn't getting the minerals I needed in my water, and it showed up in my hair. My hair was really brittle. My hairdresser was like, Amanda, I don't you have filtered water in the house. Do you think you're not getting the minerals? It's showing up in your hair. And I said, I eat organic, healthy food. I'm very mindful of that. But I said, you're right. And I saw them in the Herb bar. It's in a little blue container,
Chase
the
minerals?
40,000. Yes, Chase Minerals. So we bought those and I ingest those every day and I've seen a massive difference. My hair is a lot softer. It's also thicker and it's cleared up my skin. So that's one of the things that I was at my hairdresser. She said, hey, this is probably what's going on. And immediately, I just said, show me the right thing. And I just got online and that's what showed up. And I saw it in the herb bar and I was like, and I remember thinking, well, I must have chosen a good one because Megen chooses to stock this in here. And you all use high quality, high efficacy, very intentional products in there and brands that are intentional. So I remember like smiling when I saw it on your shelves and I thought, I've been using this and this is what I was called to. And those are the minerals you carry in there. So to me, those are synchronicities that, I'm listening. And then the right, the ideal mineral or medicine shows up for me. But the other thing that I've always incorporated, chlorophyll, spirulina, chlorella, those sorts of things, whether it's through vegetables or supplements. But recently, and this is probably within the last 8 months, in a very consistent way, I make sure that I get in my liquid chlorophyll and I use a spirulina powder and the liquid chlorophyll. And I drink it in the morning. And I will tell you what I have seen in my body change I've never seen change before. And it was just that concoction and me intuitively saying, I want to drink this every morning. And it's beautiful because it's just so green.
Oh, it's so pretty. Yeah.
But I will tell you this. I do not crave sugar, and I don't eat much processed sugar unless I'm somewhere and I indulge, but I don't keep that in the house. But I found that I don't have that kind of obsessive sugar craving to like have the sweetness of life, or that emotional eating sometimes. that has really quelled. And what's interesting is I feel like it's helped my mental health because, of course, it works on the gut. So I feel like it's greened my gut. So I found that by having that consistently, I can indulge in life and the things and the sweetness of life. And it doesn't, my eating it's not about perfect eating, but it is about knowing that I can show up in life and indulge. And then there are certain things that seem to get me back to a healthier baseline easier. I'm so excited that you and representing the Herb Bar are joining me on May 7th in Austin, because you've already curated some medicinals, plant medicine, and different offerings, a variety of different things so people can dip their toe in the water, become more familiar. But for people out there who obviously aren't going to be at the event or in the Austin, Texas area, tell everybody a little bit about the Herb Bar and then what recommendations you would have for listeners to begin wherever they are, just like a 101, like where to start, because I think that's what can be overwhelming and intimidating, like we talked about. Where do they start? But talk a little bit about the Herb Bar for sure.
Yeah, so the Herb Bar itself has been around since 86. It's Austin's original apothecary and metaphysical shop. I have not owned it since 86. I've actually the third owner. I used to live in Bolton Creek, which is where the shop is. I used to go and spend all my money there. Then after I did in school for herbal medicine, I worked there as an employee, and now I own it. So the shop has been a very, very special place for me for quite some time. And what's something I've realized owning it is I am very far from the only person who has that experience. So many people have been coming in since 86 and bringing their kids in. And there's just a lot of history and community that's wrapped up in the shop, which I really love. Because that's really what herbal medicine is about. Like, it shouldn't be gatekept, right? It should be wisdom that's shared with everyone to enjoy. And that's one of the things that we do at the shop that I'm really proud of. We have lots of 101 classes and workshops where you can learn how to work with plants at whatever level you're at. We have, beginner level, intermediate, advanced stuff that we're always doing. So you can check out our newsletter or our website. That's always going to have that stuff on there. I would say for me, just getting curious is the number one step. And don't be intimidated. Any herbalist or any shop that you go to that makes you feel like they're the ones who are going to tell you and that, you don't know what you're talking about, that's not the shop for you. You should be going somewhere that wants to educate you, that wants to make you feel comfortable and safe to ask questions and things like that.
So tell everybody, Megen, where they can find you, the Herb Bar, and also getting on your mailing list. I think that would be a great place for people to start, your social media and your mailing list.
Yeah, so you can go to www.theherbbar.com. Definitely sign up for our newsletter on our website. We don't spam you, but it's really great. It's a beautiful newsletter, and it's always going to keep you updated on all of the different things. Yeah, just come on by the shop. Everybody there is really lovely and just open to sharing their knowledge.
I love that. Well, definitely check it out. Thank you, Megen, for spending the time today and weathering the Mercury retrograde storm of technology. Thank you all out there. If there are some glitches in this, we both have shown up, but we are just riding the waves. So thank you for sharing all of your insights and your wisdom and your time today. I really appreciate it. And for everybody out there, you can look in the show notes. We'll add links to the Herb Bar and obviously the event. If you're not coming, there are still tickets available. We'd love for you to join us. It's on the Taurus new moon, and I know Megen is going to bring also a little Taurus new moon kit, so that's something you can get while you're there too. It's very intentional, and we're going to use the power of our presence and our community and being together alongside of other plant medicinals to really help us rise up in consciousness and heal and come back to ourselves. And like what you said, and that's the note I want to close on, what could my life be like? That, I think, is a beautiful place to get curious, as you said, and think about in the months ahead, especially as we move into this full moon and the close of Mercury retrograde, getting clear in what can my life be like, and not being intimidated by that question. So if you're new to herbs and plant medicine, don't make it intimidating, make it accessible, and start one question, one intention at a time, one newsletter at a time, and see where that takes you and have fun with it. Thank you so much, Megen, for joining us.
Thank you.
Everyone, take care. Be well.
For 25 years, Brightview Senior Living has been dedicated to creating an award-winning company culture so residents and families receive best-in-class services. Across our 50 communities, Brightview associates help deliver peace of mind, safety, security, transportation, daily programs, delicious food, and high-quality care if needed. Discover how our vibrant senior living communities can help you live your best life. Visit brightviewseniorliving.com to learn more. Equal housing opportunity.
Every family has an origin story, one passed down through the generations. Mine happens to be a mystery involving my great-great-grandmother left behind in Sicily. I'm Jo Piazza, and my new podcast will transport you to the gorgeous island of Sicily as I trace my roots back through a whodunit for the ages. Listen to The Sicilian Inheritance on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Bring a little optimism into your life with The Bright Side, a new kind of daily podcast from Hello Sunshine, hosted by me, Danielle Robay.
And me, Simone Boyce. Every weekday, we're bringing you conversations about culture, the latest trends, inspiration, and so much more.
I am so excited about this podcast, The Bright Side. You guys are giving people a chance to shine a light on their lives, shine a light on a little advice that they want to share.
Listen to The Bright Side on America's #1 podcast network, iHeart. Open your free iHeart app and search The Bright Side.